which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate representing Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I offer this prayer in commemoration of Autism Awareness Month. Creator, we pray for Marylanders living with autism spectrum disorders. We pray for the children and the adults on the spectrum who struggle to understand how the social world operates and who always feel that they are on the outside looking in. We pray for those who aren't invited to lunch with their peers or their coworkers, or who are disliked for reasons that they just cannot understand. We pray for those who do not communicate well or who cannot communicate at all. Please allow them to experience the dignity and joy in life that their challenges and their natural anxieties often prohibit. Help them to recognize their value and to know that they are enough. We pray for the parents and other family members to never lose hope as they work hard with love to recognize the strengths rather than the disabilities of their children and of themselves. Help them to know that they are enough. We pray for teachers to recognize the behaviors and gifts of these individuals through your eyes and through those of the people who love them the most. And most of all, Creator, we pray for those who are not on the spectrum. We pray for the enlightenment and the grace to make a difference in the lives of these very special people with a kind word, a gesture, and recognition of their worth. And we pray that our work here in this body will support their humanity and will add abundance to their lives. Amen.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 139 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 21st, 2023.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. We have some special guests this morning.
Yep. Madam Speaker.
What are you?
To introduce a special guest.
Okay, well, you got to tell me. You switched up on me.
Understood.
Recognizing good gentleman from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to use the delegate's name?
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to everyone the real MVP, Dr. Wanda Durant. She's a native of Prince George's County, Maryland, where she's raised two sons, Tony and Kevin Durant. Through motherhood, she realized the importance of community and made it her life's mission to inspire the youth and provide them with the right tools to follow their dreams. She's teamed with several foundations, founded her own nonprofit, the Real MVP Foundation, which is doing incredible work across the state of Maryland and our country. I want to thank her specifically for the work she's done in Prince George's County and in District 47A, alongside her dear friend, Delegate Diana Fennell, the mother of the 47th District. Again, colleagues, please help me introducing and welcoming Dr. Wanda Durant.
Will the reading clerk read the resolution in full?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Wanda Durant in recognition of being the real MVP of 2023, outstanding community service, good works, and philanthropy throughout Maryland and in your native Prince George's County. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 4th day of April 2023.
Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. Clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 770, Senator Carter, House Rules.
We are going to pause our session right now in order to recognize the awardees of the 2023 Speaker Society. This is our 27th anniversary. We will begin with the Speaker's Medallion. This award is presented to a Maryland citizen who has made outstanding contributions to the state. This year, we will be presenting the award to two recipients. Award number one goes to a trailblazer who changed the face of Maryland's highest court. As the first woman to be appointed as Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals of Maryland, she was committed to creating a judicial system that was equal, fair, timely, and looked like the people it served. While on the bench, she reformed our justice system to improve responses to children, the poor, and to minority communities. A decisive leader, she shepherded the court through an unprecedented pandemic. And during national police protests, she acknowledged the system inequities that put more people of color through the justice system and reaffirmed the court's obligation to ensure equal justice under the law. This person has made an incredible impact on Maryland's courts, on law clerks, and on jurists across the state, which is why I'm pleased today to present the first Speaker's Medallion Award to retired Chief Judge Mary Ellen Barbera.
I don't know what to say. Speaker Jones, she is phenomenal, and I'm so pleased to be here this morning. So, Madam Speaker, members of the House of Delegates, good morning all. I know that you are nearing the close of the session and there is work to be done before sine die, which is creeping up on you pretty fast, I suspect. Next Monday? Ooh, okay. So I will keep my remarks short. I was certainly surprised to receive the call from Speaker Jones's office inviting me to be here this morning in the House chamber of this historic building, and I'll never forget how beautiful these rooms are. I have had the privilege of standing at this podium from time to time, whether to deliver the state of the judiciary or to congratulate and welcome newly appointed judges of our appellate courts. Upon my 70th birthday, I retired as Chief Judge. I am very proud that I was succeeded by the inimitable Joseph Getty. Now, many of you know him because he has been in all three branches of government, just by the by. Here in the State House, upstairs on the second floor, working for Governor Hogan as the Chief Legislative Officer. And he is great, and we've got a new now Chief Justice. For those of you who saw the down ballot vote, yes or no, whether to change the names of our two appellate courts. Chief Judge Getty is the last Chief Judge. He served for 8 months as we were awaiting the appointment of the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Maryland, that being Matt Fader. You in the House of Chamber, in this House chamber, and your colleagues across the state, in the hall, in the Senate chamber, you serve the people, You serve it well. And I am thrilled to be here today and to recognize just how well government is being operated. So I know that you and your colleagues, once again, across the hall, you serve the people in a most important way. Indeed, you make the law of this state. And it is important work indeed. And I would declare that to be an understatement, more than important. I'm sure it's difficult, long days, long evenings, particularly as we're getting through the next close to a week or so. And like you, it has been for me a privilege to serve our fellow Marylanders. Thank you once again, Madam Speaker, for this lovely and significant award. I will treasure it. Thank you. This is the man who makes me so happy all the time. He's great. He might say different, but
The second award goes to a longtime public servant who spent over a decade as Maryland's top budget officer. She has the distinction of being the first and only African American woman in the nation to serve as a chief state budget officer. While managing Maryland's multi-billion-dollar budget and personnel system, she helped eliminate Maryland's long-term structural deficit, reduce spending, and protect the state's AAA bond rating. During her tenure, this person was the primary architect of proposals to reform the state pension system and revamp the health benefits program. She also proposed changes to close loopholes and make the state tax code more progressive. I'm pleased to present the second Speaker's Medallion Award to the former Secretary of the Maryland Department of Budget and Management, T. Eloise Foster.
Madam Speaker, members of the House of Delegates, and to everyone who's in the chamber, good morning. There really aren't sufficient words to express how honored and how humbled I am to have been selected to be a recipient of the Speaker's Medallion Award. You know, throughout my career, I just tried to do a good job, to excel in my field, and basically to perform at the highest level that I could. I learned that excellence is not an act, but it is a habit. So trying to do good work every day is a goal that I set for myself early on, and it's one that really kind of kept me motivated and focused throughout my career. The late Althea Gibson said, if you're successful in this life, you didn't do it alone. You had help along the way. And certainly that was true in my case. I was helped by the late Howard Pete Rawlings. And many of you know him. Pete was the first African-American to chair a fiscal committee in the Maryland General Assembly. He was chair of the Appropriations Committee. Pete was my friend, and he was my mentor. He played an instrumental role in my career, as he did in the careers of many other people, some who are in this room. I really tried to follow the Pete Rollins model and do as much for others as Pete did for me. And I think along the way, I may have opened some doors for the next generation. So, Madam Speaker, members of the committee, thank you again for this tremendous honor. It means more than you'll ever know. And finally, I want to thank my friends who came out to support me, Karen Williamson and Jerry Nuru Holmes. Thank you.
Now, moving on to the Thomas Kennedy Award. This award is presented to a former member of the House of Delegates for personal courage and dedication to the principles of liberty and freedom. This award goes to another longtime public servant who rose from delegate to senator to the people's lawyer. He was a fearless fighter for consumers, for environmental justice, and for Maryland's most vulnerable communities. It didn't matter if you were a big business, a gang member, or President of the United States. If you were a bad actor who preyed on Marylanders, he would come after you. In his more than 3 decades of public service, he left a legacy of progressive policies that strengthen gun safety, expand criminal justice, protect our environment, and limit discrimination. I am proud to present this year's Thomas Kennedy Award to former Attorney General Brian Frosch.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate those kind words. It's a shame my parents weren't here to hear them. I know my father would have deeply appreciated them, and my mother might have believed them. I have to take issue with one thing that you said, is I did not rise anywhere from the House of Delegates. I loved being in the House of Delegates. I loved every minute of it. Well, I mean, the last couple of weeks I had these homicidal tendencies, but most of the time it was a blast. And I felt, as I know you feel, that the work is incredibly important. And I appreciate you. I appreciate every single one of you for the work that you do. I know the pay is fantastic and the hours are short, but you know, you guys do a great job. You're fighting for Marylanders, you're fighting for democracy, you're fighting for fairness, and it's a wonderful job. You guys do terrific work. I'm deeply appreciative of that. I just wish I could be here and sit in the back and have a vote and help you out the last 6 days, but I'm very grateful for this award, Madam Speaker and members, And I look forward to seeing you and look forward to seeing the great job that you do at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Our final award is the Casper R. Taylor Jr. Founders Award. This is presented to a sitting member of the House of Delegates for a steadfast commitment to public service and the integrity of the House of Delegates. This delegate's 30-plus years of public service has been underscored by leading advancements in healthcare, technology, and environmental justice. Throughout his legislative career, he has inspired innovation and expanded opportunities through policies and through his leadership in the House. A former majority leader and a consistent thought leader, this person has spearheaded landmark reforms that allowed Marylanders to see the doctor of their choice, provided more opportunities for workers to earn a fair wage, created an environment where small businesses and entrepreneurs can thrive, and reinforce a sustainable environment. As chair of the Environmental and Transportation Committee, he has been at the center of Maryland's in the fight against global climate change. He has been named Environmental Legislator of the Year and led what has been called the nation's most significant acts to fight climate change. I am pleased to present Chairman Delegate Kumar Barve with this year's Casper R. Taylor Founders Award.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, distinguished members of the House. I am Maureen Quinn, but probably better known to all of you as wife of Kumar the Magnificent. This chamber will always hold a hallowed place in Kumar's heart because this institution gave him nothing less than his very identity. Growing up in the 60s and 70s as an Indian American, where virtually no one looked like him, was an isolating experience. But getting elected in 1990 put an end to that chapter in his life. Kumar found his voice from the moment he took his seat on that floor. And for all that this institution has given to him, he has given so much more in return. He has entertained you. You know I was going to lead with that. He has guided you, and he has mentored you. Kumar, you have given so much to this legislature that you will live on in the veins of the marble that wrap around this room.
Thanks.
And this room will live on inside of you. Congratulations, my love.
Well, I'm glad I wore my raspberry tie and lavender pocket square. I have literally spent half my life in this legislature, 32 years, and I've actually loved every moment of it, even the bad parts, the relative bad parts, because, you know, one of the things that you come to realize is that we breathe life into the American democratic experiment. 32 years ago, I was delegate-elect to Kumar Barve, and permission to use the delegate's name. And Ann Healy was delegate-elect Ann Healy, and sitting next to me was this guy who went on to other things named Chris Van Hollen, and one of the most flamboyant leaders in this chamber, a man who was majority leader and chairman of the committee that I chair, actually, believe it or not, John Arnick, was talking to us freshmen about a exhibit of the American Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that was going throughout the entire United States, and at that time it was in the Smithsonian, and he said, you know, you really should go down to D.C. and look at that document, because that's you they were writing about. And nothing could be more correct than that. This is democracy at a human scale. We talk to lobbyists, we talk to advocates, we talk amongst ourselves, negotiate, we love each other, we hate each other on in occasion, and I am so proud, as the first person of Indian origin and the first Hindu to be a state legislator, to have been a part of this gigantic American experiment, successful experiment in democracy. And so before I completely conclude, I do want to recognize a couple of people who are up around me, and of course there is my Chief of Staff, Trish Gagnon, and my legislative aide, Kathy Dunn, who I've worked with for so many years. And I suspect that in Arizona, listening in on the internet is my long-standing legislative aide, Mary Scholl. If you're listening, thank you. I love you. I love you all. So I'll just conclude by saying, and of course, by the way, some of my sneakier, more politically astute strategies were concocted in working with my extremely hot wife here. And she's also, by the way, the first female to be the chair of the Workers' Comp Commission. So I'll just conclude by saying that, of course, I love you all, and I think all about the people like Clay Mitchell and Casper R. Taylor, and of course, a guy who I met on my first day in the Economic Matters Committee, Speaker Mike Bush. I remember the highs and the lows, but this is a high point. I love you, I love this institution, and I love what we are able to do collectively on behalf of the great American experiment in democracy. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah.
Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. Report number 22. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 208, Street Racing and Exhibition Driving, Prohibited Acts, Enforcement and Penalties. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 strikes the death of a person as a potential element of the violations because it's covered in current law by vehicular homicide. And number 2, for a violation of exhibition driving, require 1, a person perform 2 or more of the listed acts, 2, the acts be intentional, and 3, the acts be in close proximity to a crowd or gathering. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Yes, the gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May the floor leader rise for a few questions.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. So as everyone remembers, a few years ago there was a bill passed for Ocean City for exhibition driving because of some of the problems from a pop-up event through social media that created huge havoc and chaos in Ocean City. How is this bill different from when it was first introduced?
From how this bill was first introduced?
Correct, yes. What has evolved in this bill since it was originally introduced as House Bill 208?
So this bill has been amended, as I just said, that these acts have to be done in close proximity to a crowd or gathering. They have to intentionally result in 2 or more of the acts. And then 1 standalone act that could have counted as exhibition driving with someone on the hood of a car, was put as one of those elements that has to be done.
So, for example, I'm sure many of us remember the event on the Bay Bridge where there was a single vehicle that decided to do donuts, a very skillful driver doing donuts in the middle of the Bay Bridge. How would this bill impact that scenario as far as addressing it with penalties?
So that person could still be charged with exhibition driving. That person stopped traffic, so that's your crowd or gathering. And if you're doing donuts, you are either abruptly accelerating or decelerating, plus you are also, where's the second piece in that? You're skidding or squealing the tires of the motor vehicle.
Since this bill is so important to my district, could I ask that it be held special ordered until tomorrow for the potential of an amendment?
How about the next session?
If we can get an amendment that quickly, I'll certainly accept that.
Great, thank you, and please provide the amendment.
Thank you, will do.
Sure.
Question for the House of Special Order HB 208 to the appropriate time next session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 23. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 284, Environment, Reducing Packaging Materials, Producer Responsibility. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill is identical to SB 222, which passed second reading with amendments. The amendments make the bill identical to SB 222. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 strikes language that would have established an ongoing statewide recycling needs assessment and instead makes the need assessment a one-time requirement, alters definitions under the bill, strikes language that would have established the required framework for producer responsibility for packaging materials, and instead requires the Advisory Council to make recommendations as previously described. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 26. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 228, Department of Aging, Long-Term Care and Dementia Care Navigation Programs. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill is identical to HB 614 as it passed 133 to 0 in this House. The amendment conforms the bill to its cross-file. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 255, Public Health, Home and Community-Based Services for Children and Youth. Favorable.
Question for the House is the favorable report. All in. Question for the House is the favorable. Yeah, should be 255. Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay. Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 24. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 41, Baltimore City Property Tax Retroactive Exemption. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 249 as it passed the House. They require Baltimore City to file the required report instead of SSTAT. Move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 302, Talbot County Board of Education Election of Officers. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 384, Garrett County Tax Sales Auctioneer Fees. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 402, Kent County Board of Education Student Member. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 620, Institutions of Higher Education Sports Wagering Contracts Prohibition. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 699, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, Equitech Growth Fund and Commission. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past for third reading. Special order calendar number 47. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 201, Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2023. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee.
Madam Speaker, member of the Maryland House Delegates, the House Appropriations Committee recommends 126 amendments to House Bill 201, the capital budget for fiscal 2024. These amendments are indicated on the committee reprint and described in the committee report that were available on Friday. The reprint is not available on your floor system, but can be found on the Maryland General Assembly website under History, and then click House Committee Reprint. The committee took actions that are fair, balanced, and ensure that the capital budget represents all regions of the state. In approaching our work this year, the committee ensured that we address the state's capital infrastructure needs, assist our communities, local governments, and local organizations, and remained within the level of debt proposed by the Spending Affordability Committee and within the state's debt affordability limits. As has been the practice in the past, I will introduce the amendments in groups. After describing the amendments, I will then move for each group to be adopted. If any member has concerns about a specific amendment, please ask to have that amendment separated for debate. I ask members to hold additional amendments until after the committee's amendments have been adopted. Please keep in mind that all amendments are to be drawn to the committee reprint. With your permission, Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the first group of amendments.
Permission granted.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Move the adoption of amendment number 1.
Question for the House is the committee amendment number 1. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The amendment has been adopted.
Amendments number 2 through 9 pertain to the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, the Maryland State Department of Education, and the University System of Maryland. Amendment number 2 adds funding for a new project in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. In the Maryland State Department of Education, Amendments 3 and 4 reduce bond funding and programs fully funded in combination of general funds and general obligation bonds. Amendments 5 through 9 add funding for various projects at University System of Maryland institutions. Move the adoption of Amendments 2 through 9.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 2 through 9. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted.
Amendments 10 through 12 pertain to the Maryland Higher Education Commission, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, and the Department of the Environment. Amendment number 10 adds funding for multiple projects in the Maryland Higher Education Commission in the Department of Housing and Community Development. Amendment number 11 adds funding for contingent on legislation. Amendment 12 adds funding in the Department of the Environment. Move the adoption of amendments 10 through 12.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee amendments 10 through 12. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted.
Amendments 13 to 108 pertain to the miscellaneous grants program. Amendments 13, 15, and 16 increase funding for miscellaneous grants. Amendment number 14 strikes contingent language on an authorization. Amendments 17 through 108 add miscellaneous grants for various projects. Move the adoption of amendments 13 through 108.
Question for the House is the adoption of committee members 13 through 108. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted.
Amendment number 109 pertains to local house initiatives. Amendment 109 adds selected local house initiatives. Move the adoption of Amendment 109.
Question for the House is adoption of committee amendment 109. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted.
Amendment number 110 to 125 pertain to prior authorizations and pre-authorizations. Amendment number 110 deauthorizes general funds for a project in Garrett County. Amendment 111 and 112 deauthorize bond funds that are fully replaced with general funds. Amendments 113 through 125 add pre-authorizations for future fiscal years. Move the adoption of amendments 110 to 125.
Question for the House is the adoption of the committee amendments 110 through 125. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted.
Amendment 126 pertains to the State Finance and Procurement Article. Amendment 126 amends language to change a reporting requirement. Move the adoption of Amendment 126.
Question for the House is the adoption of Committee Amendment 126. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted.
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 763128/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much to be considered a reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment makes changes to a number of projects. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Any other amendments to the bill or to its title? Okay. Hearing none, the bill is ordered, passed for third reading. Special order calendar number 49. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1035, electric companies, gas companies, and the Department of Housing and Community Development, energy efficiency and conservation plans. Favorable report is amended and adopted.
Okay. Recognizing the maker of the...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have an amendment at the desk. It's 123025/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Empower program and a lot of the things that we do as a state and as a legislature to encourage energy conservation, energy efficiency, and try to bring us into the 21st century and beyond is an important program. It's a significant program, and it's a complicated program, and I'm sure that either the vice chair or the chair of the committee who will rise in debate about this amendment knows more about it than what I do. I freely concede that. What the amendment does and is intended to do, however, is this. At the end of the day, someone has to pay for these programs. Someone has to pay. And we have a fairly strictly regulated utility system in Maryland that says that if the utility companies undertake projects, if they spend money, essentially, in pursuit of objectives from the Public Service Commission or from this legislature to achieve energy conservation or energy efficiency, they have to have a mechanism to recoup the monies. And they recoup the monies, by and large, not completely, but by and large, by ratepayer assessments. And some of those ratepayer assessments are in the form of the actual rates that they charge you for the kilowatts of energy that you use. And some of those are through something called surcharges. What this amendment does is that it says that in recovering the costs for one of these particular programs that we have put in place, and I'm not here to suggest that the utilities are blameless in all of this. I think that, we have to work in partnership to achieve these goals, and all of us could be better partners, including the utilities. But they're going to get the money to pay for these things one way or the other from our constituents, from our folks who use electricity or gas heat. They need, these are not things that are luxuries, they are necessities of modern life. We all understand that. And so what the amendment simply does is it puts sort of a cap or an outer bound on how much the rate of the surcharge can increase per year for the utilities to recoup these costs associated with some of these Empower energy efficiency and energy conservation programs. And it caps it at 10%. So a 10% raise in a surcharge, quite frankly, is fairly high. It's fairly high. 10%, it exceeds the rate of inflation, and we're at the highest peak of inflation that we've been since the 1970s, early 1980s. We understand that. So it's not designed to say, well, gee, if it goes above 2% or 3% or 5%, you can't do it. It recognizes that the recoupment has to occur, that the programs have to be paid for, and that we set the outer boundary at 10%, because I got to tell you, even people of reasonable means, when they start looking at their utility bills and they see these large jumps, they have concerns. And people of less than reasonable means and people with fixed incomes, they still use electricity, they still use heat, they still need all these same services from the same utility companies, and they're still part of the surcharge. And so that's the intent of the amendment, is to certainly would not gut the programs. I don't believe it would allow the programs to proceed. It would allow the cost to be recouped in a reasonable fashion over time, but that it would limit the yearly increases that occur to these surcharges to 10% in an honest effort to attempt to protect ratepayers, to protect the folks who pay the bills at the end of the day for these programs. And thank you for the opportunity to present the amendment, and I certainly appreciate the views of the Vice Chair, who I'm sure will respond in kind. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to ask the body to reject the amendment. Essentially, this is the safety valve amendment that it's been dubbed, but really all it does is protect the utilities' profits at the expense of ratepayers. And the net effect is that ratepayers are going to pay more in the long run to recoup this balance. And so the best example I can give you is a credit card. In the inception, when we set up Empower, there's this $850 million balance because ratepayers took advantage of the Empower program at a higher rate than expected. The PSC ordered that $850 million balance stay in place until they could figure out a plan. And then in December, they figured out a plan that this balance had to be paid off by the end of December 2029. What the amendment is designed to do is circumvent that. And so ratepayers will ultimately, like a credit card, continue to pay the minimum payment each and every year. And that is to the tune of about $56 million a year in interest to the utilities for really nothing more than carrying forward this balance. And so by accepting the amendment, we will never even make a dent into that $850 million, which we need to pay down ultimately by the ratepayers so that they can clear the balance and return the program to what it's restored to or what it should be. So with that, I ask the body to resist the amendment.
Recognizing the sponsor of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And like I suspected, it's complicated, obviously. But the one thing that shines right through all of that is we're asking the ratepayers to pay higher and higher surcharges to pay off $850 million of a program that we created that was supposed to help them. There's an $850 million balance because so many people out there in the world, your constituents and mine, thought, gee, this is a good program, and maybe it'll help cut down on my bills because I'll get energy efficiency and energy conservation aspects implemented to my home, whether it's weatherization or conversion to other fuel sources, other electrical sources. We told them this is a good thing. It's going to help you. It's going to save you money. Doesn't seem like it's going to, because we're saying that now we have this balance and we have to pay it off. And when we say we don't mean we. We don't mean the general fund. We mean they. We mean they. Maybe we, I'm sure all of us here have a power bill in our own name, so we'll be paying it too. But we mean they. The ratepayers have to come in and take higher and higher surcharges to pay the $850 million program off that we created and that we told everyone is going to save you money. And I think the Vice Chair probably could be right in the long term. I don't know what the long term is. Is it 10 years? Is it 12 years? Is it 25 years? But I know that next year, the ratepayers are not going to be better off if we don't do these types of amendments and we allow huge surcharge increases to occur to pay off things that happened years ago that we told them were a good idea. That's all I'm looking for. Safety valve is probably a good way. It's probably a nice way to say, let's put an outer boundary on how much money we can take in a surcharge out of our ratepayers in any given year. Sticker shock is a real thing. I would hate to be a 65-year-old retired couple living in Allegheny County, Maryland, or Caroline County, Maryland, or Baltimore County, Maryland, and find out that my surcharge on this particular element just went up 30 or 40 or 50%, 15%, 20%. It's going to go up again the next year, 15, 20%. It's going to keep going and going and going so that I pay for these energy efficiency things that were supposed to save me money. And I think that we can do better than that. I think we can at least provide some reasonable boundaries to those surcharges. Subject to further debate, I move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're not here to dispute the debt, but just so everybody is aware, the ratepayers have paid almost $900 million on an $850 million balance, and under this in interest, and the unamortized balance still remains to be $850 million. So they haven't even made a dent into that. And so this amendment essentially the ratepayers will never be able to pay off that debt, and they owed. And you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's through no fault of anybody in this room. It's a PSC ordered, and we can't go back and dispute or argue what previous legislators did back when the inception of the program took place. But the debt is owed, and we need to pay it down. And that is a PSC order. And in the bill, if you read the bill, we give ratepayers an additional 2 years to pay it off to ease the burden. So with that, I again please ask the body to reject the amendment.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a reminder, we just recently had the Public Service Commission, there was a request for more money due to what happened in Baltimore City, them selling the conduit, the rights. I'm not sure how that worked out, but the day after that contract was signed, the Public Service Commission received a notice that they wanted to raise the rates. Anyway, I just want to remind the body that also, I remember back when he deregulated gas and electric, we thought it was going to be a great thing, something we need to remember. Our gas and electric bills went up 72%. So a lot of times we mean well, but it don't always turn out well. And I just urge this body to really look hard at this before we vote on it. Thank you.
Any further debate? On the amendment, all in favor? Oh, you're just automatically getting up, huh? Okay. Let me finish though. On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 823428.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This, I believe, is a friendly amendment, and folks who are concerned about ratepayers will appreciate this amendment. What this amendment essentially does is it takes the debt that was just discussed and it lowers the return from being the working cost of capital to the cost of debt to the utilities. And so by lowering that, we will see a decrease in 2%, 3%, or 4%, depending on what happens in front of the commission in the return on that debt, and we should see a significant savings to ratepayers as they pay down that balance. Thank you.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we have a letter from the Attorney General that says that this amendment is okay, and so we will accept it as friendly. Thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted. Any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered. What is this? Printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 48. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 988, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program Modifications. Favor report is amended, adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a couple quick questions for the floor leader.
Yes, sir.
Chairman.
Thank you, sir. So the bill as amended, can you please tell me what this does?
Basically, as amended, this, as colleagues will know, last year we created a family medical leave insurance program, which allowed individuals 12 weeks for the care of family members in personal health or deployment. We did it on the average weekly wage, and we split the contribution between the employer and the employee and had this basically administered by the Department of Labor. We did it on a percentage of the salary, of the weekly salary. And the way we, as amended the bill, we delayed it for another year. So it's kicking the can down the road to collection start October 1, 2024, and payout can start January 1st, 2026. We capped it at 1.6% of the weekly wage. And again, that's a cap, meaning that's as high as Department of Labor can go. They can always go lower. And we created a split between employee, 50% employer, 50% employee. So the most the employer will pay is 0.6% of a weekly wages into this insurance policy. In addition, we ensure that the Department of Labor needs to make a report every year to determine what the appropriate rate is.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Madam Speaker, I have a amendment at the desk.
Okay.
Amendment number 973724-1.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So with last year's bill, I certainly share a number of concerns with my colleagues with, first of all, the fact that this bill could transfer that benefit between different employees. So if I worked for one job last year and I met the qualified number of hours, 600 or 680, whatever it was, and I went to work for a new employee, after just a couple of days, I could receive this benefit, and then the new employer now has to be able to allow me to take this leave after just a few days and not be able to fill that spot. Especially for small businesses or seasonal workers, this gets particularly troublesome because the smaller businesses, and I also think about business like Ocean City, seasonal work, things of that nature, once you hit this threshold, you're eligible, and it becomes very, very difficult to maintain those. So I had a lot of concerns with the original bill, but this is not on the original bill, this is building upon that. I'm certainly very concerned with businesses right now leaving our state. We all learned the news yesterday of the Guinness Brewery shutting down. We had a business in Western Maryland, over 300 employees just announced they're leaving. And while this bill, and this bill how it's written, does not drive businesses out of Maryland alone, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's the acceleration of minimum wage, it's our tax climate. It goes on and on and on and on. And what I'm trying to do here is just try to find some relief for our businesses. Again, this is one of many, many bills in this body that is well-intentioned. It's designed to help the little guy, and I certainly support that, and I've supported lots of legislation to help the little guy here. But what we're trying to do here with this bill is to split the cost between the employee and the employer at 50-50. And for the individual employee, that may be a small burden, but the employer, when divided amongst 20, 50, 100, 500, 1,000 employees, that really adds up, especially in conjunction with all the other laws we've passed to burden businesses in this state. And that's my concern. So what this amendment seeks to do is very, very simple. We've done a lot of work in this body to conform some of our laws with some California initiatives. So I'm here to support some of that today. The California law regarding this law is that 100% of the cost of the program is paid for by the employee. And in that fashion, what this amendment seeks to do is conform this law with California's law and have 100% of the cost borne by the employee, not the employer. And with that, Madam Speaker, I would move the amendment.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I would ask that you reject this amendment. I, for one, don't tie myself to California, but I do appreciate what you're saying. They were the first state to do this program, and we've learned from their mistakes, and we've learned. Number one, the benefit of this bill and the way it's split, it does something very important for employers. Where big businesses can provide these benefits, and as you know right now we're at about 2.9% unemployment rate, so it's hard to find good workers. What this does is this allows small businesses to offer this huge benefit. It motivates women to get back into the workforce because they now have a backdrop in case of having a child or a sick family member, and whether you like it or not, a lot of times the women in our lives are the caregivers. But what it does is it allows these employers to compete with the larger employers. And by doing it this way, when you're not offering this benefit and you're making it 100% to the employee E, you're disincentivizing individuals to get back into the workforce. It's no longer a phenomenal benefit. And the person that receives the most benefit out of this, again, is the employer. Because, again, they're the one who can now have this extra benefit offered into the workforce to motivate individuals to come and work for them instead of Oracle and some of these larger corporations that already offer this. So I would ask that you reject this amendment, because this does indeed help the employer by the small businessman, the person that my colleague is talking about, by incentivizing individuals to come and work for them versus the larger corporations. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my overall concern with the bill and the law without this amendment is this actually makes our businesses and our small businesses completely uncompetitive with businesses across the line in Pennsylvania, across the line in West Virginia, across the line in West Virginia. And it actually makes them uncompetitive with big business. And let me explain. If I'm a business with 1,000 employees and I lose, several of my employees to this program and they can take 3 to 6 months off for a variety of reasons, that's devastating to me as a small business. I just can't plug and play somebody that can jump in and do that work, especially if they've earned that benefit at another employer, then come to work for me and instantly are qualified because they met the qualification of the previous job a year before, right? That makes me non-competitive with large business. It makes, because the larger business can absorb that. I can't as a small business. It makes me, if I'm an employer that only hires folks in the summertime at Ocean City, right, or at Ripken Baseball, and somebody worked at 7-Eleven the year before, met their hour requirements, come work for me, at Fisher's Popcorn or somewhere in Ocean City. They start me for a few days, then they qualify for this benefit. Now I got to go find more employees and more employees. And that it definitely makes me as a small business or as a business that hires part-time employees completely uncompetitive with my larger counterparts. And again, once again, if I'm a small business and I got to face this in Maryland or face this in Pennsylvania, or not face this in Pennsylvania or Virginia or the bordering states, I'm going to go to those states, especially if I can open up right on the border and then so with that, Madam Speaker, I think this creates some competitive balance for our businesses, especially our small businesses, and I urge to move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I appreciate the truculence in my colleagues' arguments, but we're missing the point. They're going to take that leave anyway. You hire them 2 days ago and somebody dies, they are going to take that leave. That's the risk of being an employer. I myself am one. And yeah, it's devastating to find a replacement, but they're still taking that leave. But as I'll say time and time again, you're going to follow your treasure and you'll find your heart. And what is my state investing in? And we're investing in its workers. You know that because that's, again, you follow your treasure, you find your heart. We value our workers. Ergo, we want them to have this benefit. And God forbid you or I hire somebody and they have a death in the family 3 days later. Their husband or wife gets deployed 2 months later. You're correct. But that's a loss we're going to endure either way, because they are going to take that leave. They're just not going to get paid for it. They're not going to be able to recover. They're going to go into debt. And what we didn't want, and the reason we started this program, is we didn't want people deciding between their families and going into debt. We wanted them to be able, and again, this is an insurance policy. This isn't just money hanging out. This is not automatic payment. They have to qualify. It has to be for certain reasons, and they draw down on what they paid into. Because we want to make sure that our workers have this freedom to go ahead and deal with their tragic family issues. This isn't willy-nilly. This isn't because they just want to hang out and they want to stay in Venice longer. This has to do with health concerns, with deployment, with the adoption of a new child, with the birth of a new child. These are all very important, and some would say life-changing issues in our community and our society. We just wanted our employees to be able to benefit from that and still have some sort of income. We've capped it at $1,000, as much as they can earn in a week's time. And again, we try to minimize it because we also have to compete with DC. You know what DC is? It's 100% employer-based. So hopefully we can lure some of those businesses over into Maryland who may not want to pay 100% of this cost. Again, it is competitive. It does keep all small businesses competitive. I do understand what my colleague is saying because I have a small business. But if my paralegal has a family emergency and has to quit, I am replacing her temporarily regardless of whether she gets paid for her loss or not. I'm going to have to do that. She is going to take leave, and I would at least sleep a little better knowing that she didn't have to choose between coming to work miserable, ignoring her family's problems, or being able to pay some of her bills. So for all those reasons, I ask that you reject the amendment. Thank you.
Any further debate? On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 50. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 828, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, modifications. Favorable word is amended, adopted.
The maker of the special order on the House bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All my questions have been answered.
Is there any further debate? Okay. Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for passed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Gentleman from Baltimore, Kansas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change HB 988 to nay. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. There being 138 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 91. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 149, Maryland Electricians Act, revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 106 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 149, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 319, Pesticides PFAS Testing Study.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 136 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 319, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 354, Maryland Achieving a Better Life Experience ABLE Program Account Establishment Procedures.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 354, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 703, Public Health, Parkinson's Disease Advisory Committee and Website.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being First time, 140 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 703, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 723, Natural Resources, Forest Preservation and Retention,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 723, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House 1155, Work Group on Establishing a Youth Co-Design Integrated Behavioral Health Model,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1155, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1235, Real Estate Brokerage Services and Termination of Residential Real Estate Contracts, the Anthony Mormon Act,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1235, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1298, Prior Authorizations of State Debt Alterations,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1298, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I hate to do this. This is the first time I've done it all session, but I did not fully depress my button, and I dare not be the person to keep us from 140 votes. So if I could please be recorded in the green in House Bill 354 to keep this streak going, that will ease my conscience and make my day better. Thank you.
Yes. That's okay.
Madam Speaker.
Good. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Vote change on HB 319 to red. Thank you.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Vote change on 149 and nay. Thank you.
Any other vote changes? Okay. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 92. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 233, Criminal Law, Child Pornography, Assessing and Intentionally Viewing,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I often stand to complain about bills, so I thought I would take this opportunity to thank the committee for their good work on this bill. This is, right in my opinion, second to our constitutional duty to pass a budget. This is the second most important bill that we're passing this year. There is a loophole for child pornography in our state that allows people to stream child pornography because our laws have not caught up with technology. So thank you to the chair and the members of this committee for passing this bill. I look forward to working to get it out of the Senate in the next few days. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 233, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 793, Offshore Wind Energy State Goals and Procurement, Promoting Offshore Wind Energy Resources Act,
is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 793, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 797, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission Collective Bargaining Agreement Implementation Dispute Arbitration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 797, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 872, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, Service Neal Regional Transit Districts and Neighborhood Centers in Prince George's County. Contracts.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 872, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 873, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, Prince George's County, Commissioner Qualifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 873, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 955, Vehicle Laws, Manufacturers and Dealers, Allocation of Vehicles.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Young lady from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was wondering if the floor leader might be able to answer a couple questions for me.
Floor leader.
Yes, I may. Thank you so much. When this came through on the House side, or on the Senate side, I noticed a couple things, and I was wondering if you could please explain this bill to the body.
Sure. So the goal of this bill is to make transparent for dealers how the manufacturers go about allocating the cars and the type of cars that they're expecting. And so it started out as a bill where we were looking at some of the incentives that were part of that process, but we took all that out, and so all we do is now have the manufacturers explain how allocations are done.
Okay, and then could you explain to me just how we're going to determine whether it's reasonable and fair?
Well, I mean, that will be some of the things that the dealers will look at, but the idea is that if we are allocating cars to our region, which is done, that is the same approach that we would take in Pennsylvania or we would take in Virginia. And so there are guidelines that the manufacturers use. We just want to make sure it is transparent and all the dealers in our region get the same treatment as dealers in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and other areas.
Okay, so it's the manufacturers who have already established what is reasonable and fair within their industry, and we're just going to...
We want transparency on what they're doing, so we know that we're getting the same treatment that other places are getting, other regions are getting.
Okay, and so the reasonable and fair piece, excuse me, is not like in our code defined anywhere, but this is
No, it's not defined in our code. It would be considered from the industry and what the manufacturers are doing across the board.
Okay, and they've already established
We would
that,
hope so,
but we're not sure though.
but that's what the transparency helps us with knowing. So we can see what they did in one region, is that consistent with our region.
Okay, yeah, I was just a little concerned that that was perhaps vague and wouldn't, you know, fulfill the goal of the bill, but thank you very much for explaining that.
No problem.
Any further debate? Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Everyone recorded their vote. Anyone care to change their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 955, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 6. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 68, Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, Chrisfield Police Department.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 68, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 79, State Personnel, Education and Transportation, Grievance Procedures.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 79, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 82, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Talbot County.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 82, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 142, University System of Maryland Board of Regents Student Member Grant.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 142, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 152, Bond Sales, Notification of the Public.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 152, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 153, State Investment Portfolio, Investment Thresholds, Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 153, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 175, Maryland School for the Blind, Public School Construction Program, Eligibility.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 175, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 244, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Special Death Benefits, Applicability.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 244, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 248, Institutions of Higher Education, Transcripts, Prohibition on Punitive Measures Related to Student Debt.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 248, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 276, Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, Frostburg City Police Department.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 140 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 276, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 289, Higher Education, Veterans of the Afghanistan and Iraq Conflict Scholarship, altering name of scholarship.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 138 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 289, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 305, Carroll County Public Facilities Bond.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 140 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 305, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 368, Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, Membership Emergency Medical Technicians.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 368, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 369, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Transfer of Membership Modifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There be 140 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 369, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
I don't know who got up first. Jonathan?
Vote change on HB 797 to red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Vote change.
Yes, Senate Bill 248 to green. It's a good bill.
Madam Speaker, thank you. My button wasn't working. I'd like to be recorded in the green on SB 175. Thank you.
From Carol.
Senate Bill 142, I'd like to change from a nay to a yay. Thank you.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Senate Bill 248 from yay to nay.
Any other vote changes? Seeing none. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 9. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 395, State Employee and Retiree Health Benefits, Creditable Service.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 395, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 428, Washington County Deputy Sheriffs and Correctional Deputies, Employment Conditions and Collective Bargaining.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 127 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 428, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 454, State Police Retirement System, Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, and Judges Retirement System, Surviving Spouses Benefit, Same-Sex Spouses.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 454, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 466, State Retirement and Pension System, amortization of unfunded liabilities and surpluses.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 466, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 481, State Retirement and Pension System, non-vested accounts, regular interest.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 481, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 554, Maryland National Guard TRICARE Premium Reimbursement Program Establishment, Healthcare for Heroes Act of 2023.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 554, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 574, State Employee Rights and Protections, Personnel Actions and Harassment Complaints.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 574, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 659, Modernization of State Financial Systems, 21st Century Financial Systems Enterprise.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 659, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, gentlemen.
Thank you. Vote change on SB 428 from yay to nay. Thank you.
Any other vote changes? Yes, vote change.
No, Madam Speaker, my button didn't work on 659 in the yay.
Yes.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Vote change 428 from yea to nay. Senate bill.
Any other vote changes?
Yes, Madam Speaker. My button didn't work on SB 574. Please be recorded in the yay.
Any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 12. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 216, Massage Therapy Definition, Registration, and Reimbursement.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 216, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 223, State Government, State Facilities Changes and Closures Procedures.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 223, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 286, Department of Veterans Affairs, Burial and State Veterans Cemeteries, Spouses and Dependents.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 286, have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 510, Procurement Minority Business Enterprises and Veteran-Owned Small Business Enterprises, Participation Goal Scorecard.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change the vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 510, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 514, Local Procurements, Minority Business Enterprise Utilization Programs, Certification.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 514, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 782, State Procurement, Purchasing, Compost Mulch, and Soil Amendments and Aggregate.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 782, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 786, Health, Reproductive Health Services, Protected Information and Insurance Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 786, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 910, Maryland Veteran Service Animal Program, Definitions, Therapy Horse.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 910, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 27. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 429, Business Regulation, Home Improvement Commission, Grant Guarantee Fund, and Award Limits.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 429, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 555, Fair Wage Act of 2023.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Would the floor leader rise, please?
Chairman of the committee.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you please let us know what this bill does now that it's amended on third reader here?
The bill as amended basically just moves the graduated move towards $15 an hour up a year to, I think now it starts January 1st of 2024 for everyone.
So it came in earlier, moved it to January?
It did not. That's how it came in. Originally, as you remember years ago, when we fought, we did a graduated approach to 15.
Mm-hmm.
This bill just moves it to 15. The original bill had it going in, I believe, at believe in July, and it was tied to the CPI. We struck it from the CPI and extended it to January of 2024 before the bill takes effect.
Okay, so CPI is gone, but it does say everybody in the state of Maryland shall pay and or receive $15 an hour minimum wage starting January 1 of next year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually have an amendment at the desk. It's Amendment 943227/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. Would my friend, the committee chair, answer me a question before we move to the body of the amendment? In the increase to the minimum wage bill that we passed a few years ago, there was what I would call a carve-out or an exception for certain small businesses that they had a longer period of time for the incremental gains in the minimum wage. Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct.
And what was the definition, or what is the definition in the current law of the size in terms of number of employees of those businesses that have that longer period to attain the minimum wage levels?
The delineation is 15.
15.
15 or more versus 14 or below.
And in the bill that is now before us today, that distinction between the employers with less than 15 employees that had more time versus those with more than 15, that's been eliminated, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to do that just so that everyone knows what we're talking about. This amendment simply restores, I think, what was the legislature's original intent in recognizing that all businesses are not the same, that all employers and employees do not have the same circumstances and conditions, and that it would extend the time period for the truly small employers, the mom and pop restaurants, the very small town professional service offices, the very tiny construction companies, the kind of guy that comes out and he has 2 or 3 or 4 employees and he helps you pave your driveway. They help provide landscaping services residentially. They're not some big company. It extends the period of time for them to meet the $15 minimum wage by 1 year. That's all. It would still be 1 year shorter than what this legislature had intended. The original intent was those small employers would not have to reach the $15 mark until January 1, I believe, 2026. This amendment would ramp them back to January 1, 2025, but it still creates a distinction for them. And I think it's important because, we talk a lot about small businesses and independent businesses, and that really, I think, should be the focus of a lot of what we do. I got to be honest with you, Walmart can take care of themselves. They just announced today they're laying off 2,000 employees, but they can take care of themselves, and they already pay minimum wage. They have the ability to pass all these costs along and still make billions in profits. Amazon, they can take care of themselves, despite the fact they've announced that they're laying off 30,000 workers, predominantly in those warehouses that popped up all over the state and all over the country. 30,000 of those men and women are losing their jobs this year already, but they can take care of themselves. The person who can't take care of themselves and can't adjust their profit margins are these truly small businesses. They are the truly small independent businesses. It is harder and harder for them to keep up with the increasing costs, the regulatory costs, the enforcement costs, the labor costs. It's just harder and harder. And I think in each of our communities, whether you live in a wealthy community, a middle-class community, or a poor community, we all have seen examples of the mom-and-pop stores, the small accountant who operates by herself and just wants to pay somebody part-time to help answer the phone, but finds out, man, I'm not making it. I know, in reality, I know a lot of people that own small family-owned businesses, a lot of them. And I can tell you that, and I would hope your experience is probably the same, it is very, very rare for the small family-owned business person to get wealthy owning that business. It's very, very rare for the family who work in an Italian restaurant in Frederick County, and it's part of their life. They want to do this small business. They don't want to work for Applebee's. They don't want to work for Buffalo Wild Wings. They want to cook their own food. They don't want to work for Olive Garden. It matters to them. And it's very, very rare for them to get wealthy. They work hard, they pay some employees, and maybe they take home $60, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 a year if they're lucky. And that's the case for a lot of people in a lot of professions. All this amendment would do is acknowledge that that truly, truly small business is different than the big businesses. And I suspect we'll hear, and some of the opposition to this bill in general has been lessened, because the truth is, Your McDonald's franchisee, they're already paying $15 an hour. They don't care about accelerating because they're already doing it. Amazon, Walmart, General Motors, all these big places, they're already paying it. So they don't care. But who does care is that small and independent business person who just wants the people in this room to think, hey, they gave me a little bit of a break so I can adjust and so that I can keep my business alive. It's a small thing. It may not be a game changer for them, but it's symbolic and it's important. It's the intent of the amendment, and I hope that the Chamber considers it as such. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would ask my colleagues to reject this amendment. I understand the intent of the amendment, and I appreciate it, but I guess when we originally negotiated, and this is the great thing about being a part of this body, is we get to come back every year, we get to learn from our mistakes, and we get to adapt and overcome the situations as they occur, which is why we cut the CPI out of this, because we wanted to make sure we could do that when necessary. Now, this bill is a result of just that, the adaptation to the situations that changed after the pandemic. What we noticed was there was a dramatic drop in the availability of workers. It dropped down to 2.9% because times are changing. And so what the amendment does is almost an opposite to what the bill is trying to do. We're trying to make sure that those small businesses can compete for those workers. We want to make sure that everybody's on that even playing field. Beyond, we could discuss what the market's demanding, and again, that depends on where you're from and where you live. In most places, the market is demanding at least $15 an hour, if not more. In many places, the average is actually more than that. But more to the point, we're doing this to make sure that because we have such a small, unemployment rate, that these small businesses are able to compete with the big businesses. And one of the ways you have to do that is by pay. We again talked about this in one of the last bills, but it's important to bring these folks in line to make sure that they can compete with the Costco's and the Walmarts. But here's something even more, I guess, comical and strange, is that some of the larger businesses aren't paying as much because they either offer a benefits package or something of that nature. We want to make sure that those large, like there's a Hagerstown Walmart that's only paying $13 to $14 an hour. Now, they could pay more. We know they could pay more, but they won't till we make them. So this is to make sure that the big businesses do as they're supposed to, and then the small businesses compete. It brings everyone online. And again, when we had that delineation between large and small businesses, the unemployment rate was much different. So people weren't competing for workers. Now they are. And if you're paying less than $15 an hour, you will have a very difficult time getting a quality and qualified employees. For all those reasons, I ask you to resist the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that might be true. Thank you, Mr. In some places, but I can tell you, I know you've all heard me say this, I live really, really, really close to the state of West Virginia. Really close. I could walk from my office across the Potomac River Bridge into the state of West Virginia. It's not a long walk. And I got to tell you, and we also live close enough to the state of Pennsylvania, and many of you do live along the Pennsylvania border. Their minimum wage is far less than ours. And when we talk about these small independent businesses, it's not, we all do not live in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan market. I love the Washington, D.C. metropolitan market. I went to college there. I've worked there. I think it's a great place. I chose not to live there for my own reasons, and so do millions of other Marylanders. They choose not to live there. And their markets and what they deal with as employers are different. They're just fundamentally different than what you deal with. So to my friend's point of, gee, we want to do this so that the small person can be more competitive with the large person. Well, if the small person needs to pay $15 or $16 an hour to get the employee they want, there's nothing banning them from doing that. They can do that now. They don't need a bill to say that you have to do it. If they want to do it, if they're business people and they need to get those employees, they have the discretion and the ability to do that. This is saying you have to do it. And what will wind up happening is someone will say, inevitably, some small businesses confront them with all of these added costs that we keep putting on them through so many bills in so many ways every year. They will say, to heck with it, saying that politely. To heck with it. I quit. Shut my business down, sell the building, let the building go to crap. I don't care. I don't care what happens. I'm going to go work at Applebee's. I'll just go be the chef at Applebee's. I'll just move somewhere else. I'll go to West Virginia. I'll go to Delaware. I'll go to Pennsylvania. I'll go to Florida. I don't care. I can't do it anymore. My American dream is dying. That's dramatic. It's not going to be just because of the minimum wage. But I got to be honest with you. If you're not looking around at our economy, Does anyone in the room know what the Census Bureau just came out and predicted about the state of Maryland's population in the last 2 years? Guess which direction it has gone? Down. Montgomery County losing population. Prince George's County losing population. Baltimore City losing population. Where I live, hemorrhaging population. What does that say to you? What does that say to you about what we're doing and about the direction of the state? It can't be good. And so all this amendment is intended to do is signify that we care about these small businesses and that we give them some flexibility, that they are different than the big boys out there. And I hope that people consider it as such. And with that, I move the amendment subject to further debate. Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered. Printed for third read. It's on third read. I mean, declared passed. Clerk will read next bill. Oh, yeah. I guess you need a vote, huh? If I had my way. Senate Bill 555 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Is everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone
Madam Speaker.
care to change a vote? Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Explain my vote.
If you want to.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the committee chairman and the committee for working with the Senate to remove the CPI indexing. That was a big part of the issue that we had when we saw this bill coming in. The only other thing that I would say about a bill like this is that the private sector, I think, is to the minority leader's point, has already, through free market, resolved a lot of the challenges with minimum wage and has met the market by doing this the natural and the authentic way and not through government intervention, and would just encourage the legislature in future years to consider sort of how this happened through the COVID environment, how businesses can and do respond to the market in a productive way, and good business people do find that the employees are their most important assets and pay them exactly what they're worth. And with that, I'm voting against the bill, but happy to see that the amendments were made.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I could briefly explain my vote. This was a tough one for me, colleagues, but in doing the research, I realized that we're all in a crunch right now. Cost of goods and services are increasing, and the problem with stagnated wages is there's a lack of purchasing power. And over the last 2 years, the minimum wage worker, their purchasing power has dropped by 12.2%, and that's the least among us. And we have to do something to help them out. And these low-wage workers, unfortunately, live hand to mouth every day. This money that we give them is not going to be spent on luxurious cruises to the Maldives or foreign cars. It will be turned right back into our community. So this isn't just to help benefit them, it's to help benefit our economy. And for those reasons, I will be voting green on this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman from Eastern Shore to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm voting red on this bill because we're constantly increasing the cost of labor. That is the single biggest expense, that whether they're a small business or they're a large business. When we increase the cost of labor, business owners have two choices. One, they can either cut other expenses, or two, they can transfer that cost onto the consumer, right? And if they choose to cost onto the consumer with higher prices, it's only going to exacerbate the problem that the committee chair was just talking about. So this is not a solution to the problem that exists right now. The problem that exists right now is the fact that we're driving up the cost of labor in the state of Maryland. That's the problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm voting red on this because this was settled law. Settled law. This is once again proving how bad of a business partner the state of Maryland is. We could have easily just let this go into effect, but we didn't because we're anti-business. And look, we've been talking about it all morning. Bills like paid family leave, minimum wage. You know, we're doing this for the good of the business. Well, let the businesses figure this out. It's market manipulation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Anyone else to explain their vote? If not, clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 555, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 679, Anne Arundel County Speed Monitoring Systems, Residential Districts.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Gentle lady.
Thank you. I'm just bringing you an update. My system is actually frozen. I don't know if anybody else's is frozen as well.
What did she say? Well, you rose for what reason?
Sorry. Just because it's hard for the minority party to vote when we can't have a system that's actually working properly.
Is your system not working?
No, it's not. Just spinning. I've tried to refresh it, so I couldn't see what my notes were for the previous vote, but I went with my gut on the title. But yeah, it's very difficult for us to vote without a functional system. Yeah.
Okay. Let me remind you, we have 4 bills left. Can we get through this? The 4 bills?
Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just for purposes of those 4 bills, as a reminder, you can go on the General Assembly website, click on Agenda, click on House, and see the 4 bills. I know it doesn't have your notes, my friend from Harford County, but you can at least see what the bills are in the third reader text.
Clerk will take the call. Did I do it already? There was 102 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 679, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 685, Vehicle Laws, Autonomous Vehicle Converters, Sale of Autonomous Vehicles.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 685, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 693, Transportation, Assaults on Public Transit Operators Report.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 693, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 742, Vehicle Laws, Manufacturers and Dealers, Allocation of Vehicles.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 742, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 928, Insurance, Credit for Reinsurance Model Law, Reciprocal Jurisdictions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
There being 140 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 928, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Gentleman Rutherford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to be recorded in the green for Senate Bills 466 and 481. Thanks.
Any other vote changes or anything like that? Okay. Heading to work at the desk. Committee announcements. Appropriations.
We'll have bill hearings at 1 o'clock, Madam Speaker, in the committee room. Thank you.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the House Judiciary Committee will have bill hearings at 1 o'clock.
Environment and Transportation.
Do we know when we're coming back? 2:30. Okay. The
2:30.
Environment and Transportation Committee will not meet before 2:30. Listen up for subcommittee announcements, and I believe we will be voting after the second session.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will be voting at 1 p.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will be voting at 1 p.m. Don't be late.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will be voting at 1:10 p.m.
Subcommittee announcements. Any subcommittees? General Lady.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Natural Resources, we are scheduled for 2, but I am going to change it to 12:30 if I'm not crossing any other committee. Thanks.
Yes. Motor Vehicles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Motor Vehicles will meet at 1 p.m. on Zoom.
What is it? Insurance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Insurance and Pharmaceuticals will meet at 12:20 on Zoom.
Public Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Health and Minority Health Disparities Subcommittee will also meet at 12:20 on Zoom.
Any others? Okay. Any delegation announcements? Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Baltimore City House delegation will be meeting for a brief voting session tomorrow morning at 8:30 on Zoom.
Any other delegation announcements? Okay. Any caucus announcements? Women's Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Women's Legislative Caucus will be voting on its executive cabinet nominations. The email has gone out to all dues-paying caucus members. If you still want to pay your dues, please email the form to the Women's Caucus email account. We'll have our normally scheduled meeting at 8:45 tomorrow morning to hear speeches from the nominees. Thank you.
Any other caucus announcements? Any personal or guest announcements? Everybody gets up. Yes, General Lady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to use delegates' names?
Permission granted.
Thank you. On behalf of Delegate Boyce and Delegate Young, class of 2005, Delegate Rosenberg, class of 1968, I'd ask you to welcome back Baltimore City College. This time it's the speech and debate team. They won the Maryland State Championships last month. Yeah. Yeah. They are now moving on to the National Tournament of Champions, which is held in April every year at the University of Kentucky at Lexington. Congratulations to City seniors Jonah Daniels and Noah Smith. They won the Maryland State Championship in policy debate. They completed the local league season as the only undefeated team, and they've qualified for 3 national championship competitions. Additionally, the semifinalist team of Sadia Irvin and Nevias Cencion, they were also semifinalists and are also headed to the Tournament of Champions. And I also want to congratulate team member Miles Anderson, who is here. And also their coach, Patrick Daniels, is here as well. I just want to say, I know I've been texting with my legislative director. They've been enjoying the debate and I think assessing all of our performance today. So I just want to give them another warm welcome and congratulations, and thank you so much for being here.
General Lady from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. If you could join me in welcoming a guest, 2 guests that are here. My mom and my sister are here with us, Joanne Fleming and Andrea Maxey. They are up there, and it is a very special day. It is my mama's birthday, and since I had to be here, they came to celebrate with me. So, and everything that's nice and sweet about me comes from that lady, so you should all be very, very thankful. Thank you very much.
Which hat you're wearing? Black Caucus? What? Montgomery, General from Montgomery. Could you-
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Permission to use the delegates' names?
Permission granted.
Thank you. On behalf of Delegates Moon and Charkoudian, I'd like to ask the body to join me in welcoming special guests seated in the gallery, the AP Language and AP Government students of Tacoma Academy, a Christian Seventh-day Adventist school located in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and special thanks to their principal, Yasmin Julian, for bringing them here to observe our wonderful work in the General Assembly.
Madam Speaker.
Hold on a second. Gentlelady from Anne Arundel. Going over this way.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm a very proud auntie today because my little beautiful baby niece was born at 6:10 this morning here at Anne Arundel Medical Center, and it's little Madeline Grace. And so I know this is a very stressful week, so if anyone needs to see newborn baby pictures, you can come see me.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't know if they're still here, but I want to welcome the Divine Mercy Academy. It's an independent classical liberal arts Catholic private school in District 31, but they have students from all around the region. Welcome them to Annapolis. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change Senate Bill 742 to yes, please.
Any other personal or guest announcements? Okay. Hearing none, quorum called before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There will be 140 members present. The House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, colleagues, the chamber will be locked if you need to leave your computer or anything else in here. And with that, I move that the House stands adjourned until Tuesday, April 4th at 2:30 p.m., Legislative Day, March 23rd.